It is October 30, 2025, and this is episode 36. And today we're going to talk about a list of what Mayor Purval believes are his accomplishments in office. I counted 12 separate categories, and I don't think we're going to get to all 12, but we'll get to some of them. And what's interesting is I was in Seattle recently, and the Seattle Times ran an article about their mayor, who is also seeking re-election. And the headline, let me put it up here so you can see it. The headline says, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell says he added 3,000 housing units. Did he? And the Seattle Times do a pretty good job of breaking down the numbers and showing that the answer to that is no, he didn't. And so I thought that was interesting because, you know, out there, they're all on the same team. So it was good that the Seattle Times put an effort into fact checking some things that the mayor out there has bragged about, and it would be nice if we had that same type of thing going on here in Cincinnati, but we don't. So I thought we would talk about Mayor Aftab's list amongst ourselves. And it's, I wouldn't say it's the same situation, but it's definitely a similar situation that Mayor Aftab is engaged in. And so this was published in the Enquirer last weekend. I believe it was in the Sunday paper. I get it online. And I went through it, and the first thing that made me laugh, I guess would be the right word, was his claim about the Brent Spence Bridge. He claimed that the Brent Spence Bridge grant. Well, here's what he said. This is down here at the bottom paragraph there. I don't think I have a pointer, but it's in the bottom paragraph. It says, "We won the single largest infrastructure grant in American history, $1.6 billion, to build the Brent Spence Companion Bridge." I don't know how they think that that's the largest single infrastructure grant in the United States history. It's an area I'm very familiar with. And, well, of course, the first thing that came to mind was the project that's received the most federal funding in American history is the Central Artery Third Harbor Tunnel project in Boston, which is called the Big Dig. That the federal government contributed $14 billion to that project over 16 years. And there are others. There's a tunnel project under the Hudson connecting a new tunnel between New York City and New Jersey. That's going to cost $7 billion, but of course there's going to be cost overruns on that. But anyway, it was very, very strange to me that he would take credit for a historic investment when it's not, and he would take credit for it when Cincinnati isn't even a grantee. The Ohio DOT and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet are the joint grantees on the money, on the federal money. It's granted to both of those states. City has very, very little to do with it. There is going to be a role for the city once the project starts, but that's kind of an outright exaggeration. All right. So that's the first one that caught my eye. But then the next ones we got to do a little more digging. This is what they look like if you line them out on a piece of paper. The first one, medical debt relief. We're going to come back to that because that is very, very. It's kind of obscene what happened there. But they have these baby bond savings accounts. I mean, that's the terminology that's used in the article. Let's see. It says the council and I invested. He leaves out the part that they invested your money in our city's next generation, creating baby bond savings accounts. That's not correct. That's not what they did. Baby bonds, it's actually a Trump program that is designed to build wealth, just like what the mayor's trying to do. But what the mayor is doing is 529 accounts. So the difference would be that baby bonds will help you in the future if it's invested, will help you pay for things in the future or afford things in the future, like down payments on homes and things like that. It's a bond that accrues interest versus a 529 account, a children's savings account, which is basically used for education. Now, it's a good purpose, but as you'll see, the city has an overabundance of these kind of programs, and I believe that the baby bonds that they call them, or it's actually child savings accounts in the city documents, that's going to benefit like 150 kids. And who knows, I don't know how many tens of thousands of kids we have in the city. So do we know how those are selected? No, we don't really know. But he claims that's an accomplishment, that the city council spent money like that, spent your money like that, and they misname it for some reason. I'm not sure, to make it sound better. I don't know, but that is not the correct name of the program. It's a child savings account program, and the what happens to that money? I believe that it goes through. It's set up through the United Way, which is also something that is a very, very problematic. The way the city uses United Way and some of these other nonprofits, they basically give the money to the United Way, and then United Way figures out who gets the money, and they set up all the paperwork for it and things like that. And the money is actually untethered from the city. The city is very passive in this, and as you'll see, they're also passive in the medical debt relief program. They just write a check and let these nonprofits take over. So baby bonds is a misnomer. That's not what they are. Access to legal counsel and emergency eviction. I'm not sure I know exactly how much they spend on that, but it's in the same family of programs. These are programs that gives money away, your tax money, gives them away to a select number of citizens who I'm sure that there's a need there, and it's a good thing that they get savings accounts, and they get protection from evictions and all the rest of that. See, in the old days, it would be enough for the city council to pass an ordinance about eviction and how the landlord has to go about evicting people. But Cincinnati goes beyond that. Not only do we have an ordinance protecting the renters, but we'll pay for your legal counsel. And I believe that the program, I could be wrong, I believe the program also has some housing assistance if you are evicted. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. And of course, they've got money that goes to attorneys. The next one, they don't use the name of what they're talking about. The next one, it says, I can't find it. But it's about connected communities. He's taking credit for connected communities. He says that we didn't just secure our safety nets, which is what he's calling child savings account, are now part of the safety net. We transformed our antiquated systems to build a growing greater Cincinnati. This council took historic action, slashing through the red tape constricting growth by comprehensively rezoning our city. Yes, they rezoned the entire freaking city because of some grand project or some grand design that some of these other progressive cities are using that have not borne out what they're supposed to do. But this is the infamous connected communities, where they have gone ahead and changed the zoning for practically, I thought it was at least 50% or more of the city. And the idea is to remove single family zoning from corridors for rapid bus transit. So there's X number of rapid bus transit routes that are being developed. They're not developed yet. The city couldn't wait to rezone. Who knows when these rapid bus transit routes are going to be up and running. But it's basically impacting the home ownership on both sides of those corridors. And they've done a lot of changes to the zoning law in one big package. And it's another one of these cases where they did not listen to the communities. And even the impact of this is not really certain what's going to happen, but he took credit for it. So he also says something about this one. I just don't really understand it. He says, not only are new residents arriving at the fastest rate in decades, of course he doesn't tell you what that is, but we are, quote, also the first city in Ohio to implement structural changes to accommodate our growing population. So structural changes, I guess he's referring to the zoning ordinance, but I don't really know. And so that also, I guess, pertains to zoning. Then he does come close to Mayor Harrell here. He says, we tripled the rate of affordable housing construction. He doesn't tell you how many affordable housing units have come online since he's been mayor. All he tells you is that he's tripled the rate of affordable housing construction. And then he sets a goal of 40,000 new units in the next 10 years, which they love to do. You know, the railroad money, it's going to take us 10 years to whittle away at that deferred maintenance. And for connected communities, it's going to take 10 years before we really reap the benefits of that rezoning. And so all these 10-year horizons for the Green New Plan, he didn't say anything about the Green New Plan and his accomplishments, but in the Green New Plan, the benefit, we'll realize the benefit in 2050 when we reduce our carbon emissions to zero. So we've got to work on that for several more years. What's that, 24 years or 25 years? It is so ridiculous. This is a good one. We invested. This is how they talk. Must be on the next page. But anyway, they invested in the $600 million convention center renovation. We invested in the $600 million convention center renovation. So I guess they wanted to get that $600 million in there because the convention center renovation until we start racking up cost overruns. Right now, the renovation of the convention center is going to be about $250 million, and the balance, the other 300 and whatever, that's all going for the whole plaza and the hotel that they're renovating there or rebuilding. I'm not sure which, but that's for the whole project. But I guess they wanted to say that there's going to be $600 million of investment around that hotel or around the convention center, even though the city's investment is strictly, and it's not a sole investment, it's the city and the county, my understanding. So that's an embellishment. And then it says, then they go into the big dig And then it says we funded growth in every single neighborhood. I'm not sure what that refers to, and there's no further description. And then this was interesting, given what's going on these days. He says we tackled the public safety concerns head on. And then he lists out all kinds of money that they spent on all kinds of things, because that's what they do. That's what they're good at, is spending money. They claim they modernized our public safety system. Okay, $14 million to train new firefighters and police officers. I don't know if that's a reference to the new fire training facility and moving the gun range from Lincoln Heights out to Coleraine, because I believe that there's another investment. Yeah, they talk about a new $14 million training facility for fire. So I don't know if they're double counting that or what. They talk about $80 million toward fleet renovation and facility modernizations. So I did try to do some research on that. I don't know if I can put my fingers on it here. Yeah, here it is. So they say they invested over $80 million towards fleet renovation and facility modernization. But if you look at their budget records, this year it shows that they spent $10.6 million on vehicle replacement. So we know from previous podcasts or the audit report that I've talked about, the life cycle, the vehicles that are out of life cycle total $80 million by itself. So I don't know if that's why they were shooting for the $80 million in their write-up here. But they've only spent $10 million on replacement last year, or 10.6, and they have a modernization plan to spend $40 million over the next 12 years, and so that brings you up to $56 million. And I don't know, maybe they threw in some other costs, but it's definitely not a single year investment. So, and the mayor doesn't break out that $80 million in his op-ed, but he has all these other costs. $12 million to completely renovate or replace 2 fire stations, and over $10 million budgeted toward facility improvements across. See, that's all this track on Cincy business, where they've created this plan, and they've told people how they're going to spend all the railroad money, but they're not spending any of the railroad money yet. I don't know if they've spent any of it yet. It's very disappointing to see how this is unfolded with respect to the railroad money, and there's not a good accounting tracking for this money, and something we still need to work on. So they have all of this in this op-ed. I'm going to put the op-ed on my website as well, but it's very hard to figure out what they're talking about for some of these. And then finally, the final accomplishment, I guess, and this, of course, is a reference to all this to fund the police activity that has been going on. He says expanded public safety beyond policing to uproot the cause of violent crime. So this is the Act for Cincy. This is the alternative response to crisis, etc. And it's just another reason to employ nonprofits in social spending, and that's what Act for Cincy is. If it is related to crime prevention, it's way downstream from the money that's being spent, and I think that's the problem that people have had with it. Is there's no results that they can measure from any of this Act for Cincy spending and how it contributes to a reduction in crime, except that maybe if we spend more money on the children or the low-income population. Maybe if we spend more money on that group, that will reduce crime. Well, I don't know. If there's money there, the city will figure out a way to spend it on, their particular constituency. Meanwhile, very little of what the mayor lined out as accomplishments have benefited the city as a whole. These programs for the kids and the access to counsel and eviction protection and the savings accounts and the et cetera, they're not benefiting the entire city. And then finally, the mother of all spending like that is this medical debt relief program. It is such a I don't know the right word. It's not a scam, but it is an operation that this nonprofit, I guess, is making a lot of money going around and selling this type of program to cities all over the country. I believe that the nonprofit's name is Undue Medical Debt. Before that, it was called RIP Medical Debt. And they go around and buy, they've got tens of millions of dollars in the bank, and they go around and buy debt portfolios from hospitals. And they'll do it here, and I believe Children's Hospital was the first participant. Maybe not, might have been UC, but they buy the debt from these hospitals, and then the city writes them a check, and you never know exactly what happens with that money. But they claim, their last claim is, if I can find it, his last claim is in September. He claimed that the medical debt relief program canceled $220 million of debt for 119,357 Cincinnatians. I think that's what he put in the op-ed. In the op-ed, he said 110,000 people who are now free to build families unburdened by over $200 million of debt. So he's not even in sync with his own website. And what started as, what wound up as 119,357 Cincinnatians for $1.5 million started out as 134 million in debt forgiven for 34,000 Cincinnatians. So that 1.5 million started, the projection was that it would aid 34,000 people, and where we wind up 2 weeks before the election, it winds up to be almost 120,000 people and $220 million. And in November of 24, in his State of the City, he said it would help 52,000 people erase $47 million in debt. I think that must be a typo or something. But it's all kind of smoke and mirrors with this money. And you don't really know what happens to it or how this exactly works. It's some kind of black box. But even the Undue Medical Debt nonprofit, when it comes to the results in Cincinnati, they claim that they have relieved the debt or canceled the debt for 107,000 people and canceled out $219 million in debt. So the numbers are all over the place, and you really have to wonder, in a program using government funding, should the numbers be all over the board like this? So that's very, very problematic in my book. And the other problem with it is that the city just writes a check. They have no involvement with the program whatsoever after that, except that the mayor wound up sending letters out to people that whose debt was relieved, most of whom didn't even realize they still had debt to pay, I'm sure. And that was their involvement in the program, is taking credit. That was their big involvement. They wrote a check, which they like to do. They have plenty of money. They wrote the check, and then this undue medical debt outfit took care of the rest. I'm sure that their executives are very, very smart people. Their two top executives each make around $300,000 a year, just like the city manager, and we know what a great job she does. But anyway, those are his big accomplishments. And when it came to crime, if you go back and look at it, and again, I'll put this on my website if you don't, or if you're not able to get it with the Inquirer, but he doesn't talk about any crime stats, does he? He doesn't talk about lowering the crime rate. He doesn't talk about reducing, this stat or that stat. He doesn't talk about, the number of arrests have gone up. We've started arresting more people. He doesn't talk about all the great work that Iris Rowley is doing down on Government Square and what a great consultant she is. He doesn't mention any of that stuff. So, of course, it's going to be, this is his thing. That's fine. But there's a lot of inaccuracies here. There are embellishments here. If anybody on in any of the media wants to talk about it, they can call me, and I'll help them walk through it. But the bottom line is that this is typical Aftab, and you should take it with a grain of salt. Until next time, thank you.